Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a good coffee break and good refreshments, and I hope you enjoyed the very interesting first session. The next session is going to be in two parts. The second part will be about new energy vehicles, in which China is going to be a world leader. And we're looking at, what that means with some technology companies and logistics company. But first off, I want to give a special presentation, or we've asked Changzhou Logistics and CDC International Logistics to do a special presentation on being a logistics company, an automotive logistics company. Changzhou Group and CDC have worked with us and has developed in the last two or 3 years into an international brand and very well known internationally. And I hope I'm not saying bad things, but they're also winning good business internationally as well. So we wanted to hear the story of being an automotive logistics company from China. So I wanted to invite Dr. Chen Gang, a board member and general manager of CDC International Logistics, to give us a special presentation. Thank you very much, Dr. Chen. Thank you.
大家早上好，我呢还有一个身份呢。
I have another title. Apart from my title as the board and general manager of CDC, I'm also the vice president of Changzhou Group. So interested by Mr. Chairman Bo, I'm here to share with you the new challenges and opportunities of China finished vehicle logistics.
So I will, my topic of speech is the new challenge of an opportunity of China finished vehicle logistics. Yeah. 大家可以看到呢，就是说上。
So you can see here we have 4 pictures. Changzhou Logistics. Currently we have 9 ships. And also we have over 10,000 trucks. And also we have our trains and 1 chartered flight dedicated to our services in China already. This morning, Madam Huang and some other leaders have already mentioned about the China's economic growth, especially the auto growth has been developing steadily. I won't talk too much about this part. So for our finished car or logistics sector, we are also facing a structural change. 5 main aspects. First of all, in the future, with the balance between different markets, there will be much fiercer competition between various logistics players, and there will be a much more clearly defined responsibilities for the job distribution between contractors and transporters. So for the multi-modal transportation, some contractors and all these players will be playing a much more important role to cope with the OEM for their national strategy implementation. For some small players, they will undertake much more concentrated and a targeted role. So there will be a very clear definition and a difference between different roles. Secondly, so the channels for the sales of cars will be more down to the earth. For over 28,000 Ford dealers and for all the new shops, there will be a new form of selling cars in the future. So 2 key features are very important. First of all, the so-called pre-arranged warehouse. That is to put the warehouse in a place where you are closest to your consumers for rapid distribution. So this is a very clear requirement by all OEMs. Secondly, tailor-made transportations based upon multi-modal transportation, warehousing strategies, technologies, and various models for transportation. So this is also a key link and a priority for finished vehicles. I used to work for SAIC, the #1 automotive company Volkswagen before I joined Changjiu, so I know something about the requirement of the OEM for the planning of the finished car logistics. Thirdly, with the national network coming to shape, there is a strong demand for the establishment of a reasonable network is to be done by the mainstream auto logistics companies. For all the OEMs, they all have their own so-called companies of their own shares or some joint ventures. Originally, their functions are quite unilateral, like number one automotive company or Chang'an. In China, they have a plan to establish a much bigger network to cover various links. So this is what I call a so-called nationwide network. Changjiu Logistics, as the biggest third-party logistic company, actually has already established a huge network covering all 31 provinces and cities around the country. Currently, we are also working on building a much bigger network covering all Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities in China. So almost all the OEMs are busy building their own network to reduce waste and also to enhance efficiency. So this is the third part. The fourth one is much more rationalized distribution or proportion between railway, road transportation, and water transportation. In the past, the split is between 80 to 12 to 8. That's the figures of the previous years. But now, the figure or the ratio will be much more rationalized. I think that in 2018, the figure will be somewhere around 53 to 30 to 70. So rail, 30%, excluding multimodal or short distance redistribution. In Europe and in America, the figure is somewhere 1/3 for each. But in China, road transportation 53% and rail transportation 30%. In the past, water is only 8%, but we forecast that in the future, the figure will be somewhere around 17%. And for rail, in the past, it's 18%, and in 2018, it's somewhere around 30%. The last key feature actually has been covered by the previous speakers, which is the used car vehicles. This is also a huge area of exponential growth. It is largely because in the past it is not so developing so rapidly because of insurance issues or because of flexible issues, but now, with the loosening of some policies by the government, like the cancellation of some cross-regional sales of finished second-hand cars, there can be more flexible arrangement of all these car resources among different regions. So this cross-regional used car sales or transaction will be much more active than ever before. And this also will trigger a new demand for the redistribution of the used cars from a place to another place. And such a distance travel will be another form of so-called travel. Taking a used car from one place to another, but at the same time you can travel around the whole country. So those who can really win the market of the used vehicles will win the future battle. I think this is a really good complementation to the so-called finished vehicle network. Well, as was said previously, with the implementation of the GB 1589, the compliance date is set to be on July the 1st, 2018. There won't be any delay in the implementation of these standards. That's for sure. And those who are not compliant will be confiscated. And there will be no exceptions to the implementation of that standards. And for those who use forged driver's plate, car license plate, will be punished by the Public Security Bureau. And those perpetrators will be subject to less than 15 days of detention. So I think that's a strong deterrent to the truck drivers. So there will be no exceptions in the implementation of these standards. The 22 meters trucks and 18 meters trucks will become the new norms or new standards. So probably the road transportation and the water transportations will have the opportunity to enjoy a greater share in the automotive logistic business. We believe the implementation of that standards will generate a demand for 80,000 to 100,000 compliant trucks. By using compliant trucks, the efficiency of the logistics will improve considerably. So compared with other express delivery or logistics businesses, I would say the automotive logistics efficiency is still very low. So right now we need the standardized trucks to improve the efficiency in the operation of the automotive logistics. By using the standardized trucks, the cost will be pretty transparent throughout the whole industry. But of course, the initial investment cost for the standardized trucks will be a lot higher than those non-compliant trucks. So for one single standardized trucks, the initial cost is about 450,000 to 600,000 RMB yuan. That might deliver a lethal blow on those small and medium-sized logistic companies. But on the other hand, this new standards or these new policies will be very conducive to the business expansion of the companies with large scales and very strong financial capability. By implementing that standard, the able companies would be able and be willing to make heavy investment in the construction of the standardized trucks. Changzhou Logistics is probably the only publicly listed automotive logistic company. We own our own logistic networks and capabilities. The rapid development of information technology greatly enhanced the convenience of the whole vehicle logistics, and it also opens up new possibilities for cross-industry or cross-border competitiveness. It supports the new business models by OEM, thanks to the push of information technologies, we can now ensure a whole process visibility of the logistic process. Well, indeed, this kind of visibility has become a norm for ordinary delivery or logistic businesses in the past couple of years, and the automotive logistics industry is catching up to ensure a holistic visibilities of the transportation. The Longzhou Logistics as well as other logistic companies are trying to use new information technology. I do believe that this kind of visibilities will become a norm for this industry. This visibilities will not only give you the GPS information, but also the driving behaviors of the drivers, the oil and gas consumptions, with the support of the big data. This information technologies will become an important way to sharpen your competitiveness. Many large-scale automotive logistics companies are implementing the paperless processing process. And information technologies will also ensure the optimized distribution of the resources across the distribution network. With the standardization of these trucks, it helps the quality companies to sharpen its competitiveness in terms of the optimized distribution of its transportation capacity. Well, thanks to the cash-free payment environment, the inherent cost or sunken cost in the process of transportation will be very transparent. And all the data is related to the vehicles can be transported back to the back-end office control center. We now have platforms that allowed us to have a direct access to individual drivers. We also developed some automotive logistic APPs. President Xi Jinping initiated or launched the One Belt, One Road initiatives, which opens up a whole new area for development for the automotive logistic industry in China. Train connecting China and Europe contribute a lot to the market demand for the automotive logistic. Well, let's say we need to transport 12,000 Volvo S90 from the Daqing plant to Belgium. Well, and this project was witnessed by the Prime Minister of Belgium. The whole vehicle has become the largest items for transportations between China and Europe. And at the same time, the domestic car brands are trying to make use of this train connecting China and Europe and export more vehicles to Europe. Well, Volvo will make full use of rail transportation to get supply and to expedite the whole vehicle shipment. Audi, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and General Motors They started to export the domestically manufactured vehicles to international market. There'll be no ceilings for international automotive logistic industries. The Changzhou Group has established its business presence in Europe. Now we have 40 employees in Europe. We own our own train, an airplane. We operate a train connecting Leipzig in Germany to Zhengzhou in China. And we have a chartered flight. It flies 2 times a week. Anji has its own ro-ro ships to carry the vehicles directly to the west coast of the United States. So for Changzhou Logistic Corporation Limited, we have a total of 9 business sectors, including domestic transportation, international logistics, supply chain finance. The Changzhou Group is a technology-driven company. It will become an international company, a globalized company, and we are making global mergers and acquisitions. We make heavy investment in internet technology, and we're committed to green and environmental friendly technologies. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chen. And a great example of how automotive logistics companies are developing and how it's a great model for all automotive logistics companies who are based in China or from China, and even for global logistics companies to understand how best to operate in China. And as we said, we are proud to have Changzhou Group and CDC as partners for the conference, and have been and will continue to be our global sponsors for 2018. And global sponsors means they sponsor our conferences around the world, so that gives you an example of their international strategy. But next up is to start the conversation on electric vehicles or new energy vehicles. We heard in the first session how important the development of new energy vehicles is, and also that China will be a global leader in this area. So we put together a special session in which we've got a couple of logistics companies to share their views on electric vehicle logistics, and a couple of companies who work in new energy vehicles to share their experiences of managing the processes. But first up, I'd like to welcome Achim Glas, the head of Global Automotive Vertical for Kuehne + Nagel. Achim, thank you.
Thank you, Louis, for the introduction. Very kind of you. Can I have the clicker? Thank you. Esteemed audience and dear colleagues, customers and friends watching us on the live stream, my name is Achim Glas, and for the past 21 years I've been working for Kuehne + Nagel. In my capacity of head of the Global Automotive Vertical, my core responsibility is the automotive strategy and automotive growth strategy execution. And as such, for the past 2 years, I've been intensively studying the logistics and supply chain challenges along the value chain of lithium batteries, which takes us to the title of the presentation, Challenges and Solutions for the Drivetrain Electrification. So what I've done for you this morning is I prepared a short table of contents, and prior to looking into that, let me please share with you my meeting objectives. So predominantly, I would like to make you aware of the multiple challenges which are along the supply chain of lithium batteries. I would like to clearly identify the associated risks for us as logistics providers, but also for you as OEMs or as tier suppliers. And eventually, I would like to provide a small look into our kitchen, how at Kuehne + Nagel we are preventing possible concerns and issues which we have according to the logistics of lithium batteries. So in chapter number 1, I explained to you the reason for the steep demand in battery transportation. We will then have a very quick look into the generic supply chain challenges when transporting lithium batteries. And I will again underline the risks. And eventually there will be some slides toward the end of the presentation about giving you examples how we overcome these challenges. So all of us know that obviously predominantly government regulations are driving the trend for electric vehicle production, supported by better battery technology and also by consumer behavior. And by 2020, it is expected that we will have 10 million electric vehicles driving on our roads. In fact, according to PwC Autofact's 2018 latest report, it is forecasted that in 2030, probably 55% of all new vehicles will be fully electrified. The majority of battery production is located in Asia. In fact, 85% of world supply is coming from Asia. And what you can see on the bottom left on that slide is that the volumes, the production capacity, will increase by 500% from 2016 until 2020. Having said so, what's now so special about this? Well, actually, there's a new challenge for the automotive industry, which we did not have in the past. So we have to ask ourselves the question, how actually do we transport lithium cells from the lithium cell manufacturer to the automotive battery assembly? We also have to ask ourselves the question, how do we service our dealerships? How can we bring to our dealerships fully charged electric batteries, and how can we collect the used electric batteries and bring them back to our warehouses? And also, we need to look into the area of what are we actually going to do with end-of-life cycle electric vehicle batteries. This all sounds very trivial, but the truth is lithium batteries are dangerous goods. And I dedicated 3 separate slides on the particular risks of lithium batteries in the later part of the presentation. But due to the high energy density, lithium batteries can combust spontaneously. That makes them very dangerous. So actually, there are very complex legal requirements which predominantly the shippers need to take into consideration when preparing paperwork, because it is the responsibility of the shipper to identify all risks and to identify the degree of hazard when actually shipping lithium batteries. Further, all around the world, there are multiple different dangerous goods and hazardous material regulations. So they vary from country to country. And also what we see is there are very restrictive shipment quantities which are available in the marketplace, because depending on the number of batteries, depending on the mode of transport, the actual shipment quantities are varying by mode to mode. Eventually, to make it even more complex, there are different transport regulations, whether you are transporting new batteries, are these old batteries, are the batteries defective, or are they prototype batteries? And to add additional complexity to this entire pedigree of challenges, there are different regulations depending whether it's a small cell, whether it's a smaller battery, or whether it's a large battery. So all of this makes the transportation and the storage of lithium batteries to fulfill the demand in the marketplace to have 10 million vehicles on the road in less than 2 years from now, it makes it very complex. And in my personal opinion, I believe that China, unfortunately at this stage, is not ready yet to handle all these challenges. So what are these specific challenges? In particular for automotive, the automotive battery is very heavy. It can be between 250 up to 800 kilograms for buses, for example. They are extremely bulky, and obviously it's the quantities which need to be transported and they need to be stored. That makes it particularly challenging for us. And I also would like to underline that the official legal requirements, they are stipulating the minimum requirements. And US tier suppliers and US OEMs, certainly you would like to proceed and exceed the minimum requirements in order to make sure that you're absolutely compliant with the legislation. So these are 3 slides now about what makes lithium batteries so different. So on the left-hand side, we see a traditional car battery, and we all know there may be acid. Okay, acid is the biggest danger which can come from a traditional car battery, but it's not really that dangerous. Then the normal dry batteries, which we also have in this device, they are very rigid. Actually, you can take the material and you can throw the battery against the wall and nothing is going to happen. Because on the top of the battery, you have the cathode, on the bottom of the battery, you have the anode, and electricity, they don't touch each other. So it is rather safe to transport and to store them. But let's have a look now at lithium battery. So the lithium battery technology is very, very different. In fact, a lithium battery consists of very thin layers of tiny, tiny foils. So what you can see on the slide over there, the blue is a cathode, and then you see a thin layer which is less than 1 millimeter, which is a separator, and then comes to anode, and the separator is preventing that those two cathodes and anodes can touch each other to prevent the flow of energy. And then again, you have another very thin layer, which is then, again, the plus and the minus pole. And the problem is that if you don't handle the lithium cells properly, may it be by falling down on the floor, may it be by impact, whether it's on a train or by transportation or by road from the battery manufacturer to the assembly plant, but also by overcharging or deep undercharging, what can happen is a short circuit may happen. So actually, these very thin layers may be pinched through by so-called dendrites. And the dendrites will then allow actually the flow of energy between the cathode and the anode. And that again will result in heat. And if we have too much heat, actually what a lithium battery is doing, a lithium battery itself, it's producing flammable gas and oxygen. And that will result in fire. And when you have fire, one fire will start in one lithium cell, and we are often talking about the thermal runaway. The next lithium cell will catch fire, the next one will catch fire, and the next one will catch fire. And the particular danger about lithium batteries is you cannot extinguish a fire. So you can even take a burning mobile phone and throw it into the pool. It will continue to burn. That makes the transportation of lithium batteries very, very dangerous and very, very complex. And this is why these risks are associated in lithium battery transportation. And this list is not complete, but it's what we believe at Kühne + are the most important risks associated to it. So first and foremost, life is at risk if we don't transport and store lithium batteries according to regulations. They are heavy fines given by authorities if companies are violating against dangerous goods regulations. May it be false declarations, as we can see in one of the examples which I copied and pasted into the slide, or may it be by wrong labeling of the pellets. I mentioned before the significant risk of fire, but in association to that, fire may actually have an impact on your share price because it may be having a huge reputational damage. The limited transport capacity, as mentioned previously, can easily result into production delay because it is very difficult to transport these huge quantities of lithium cells all the way from Asia to the production plants right now in North America and also in Europe, but similar over here for battery and electric vehicle production in China. And last but not least, be aware of potential consequential damages because it is possible that the current marine insurance which you guys have in place are not actually covering those damages. So this is why lithium battery supply chain risks are really, really severe, and this is why it's necessary that we are preventing a safe and stable supply chain solution. I want to give you a very specific example. This is a photo of my computer laptop battery, to keep it very simple. But take this laptop battery and just replace it with an automotive vehicle battery. It's the same methodology will apply. When the automotive battery hits the aftermarket, actually, we need to ask ourselves the question whether this battery is defective but not critical, and therefore it will not react during transportation, or is this battery actually a critical battery, so it may react dangerously during transport. And actually, who can answer this question are experts. You need experts within Euros. We have experts within our organization. More than 600 people are trained on lithium battery transportation and giving advice on identifying, is this defective and non-critical or defective and critical? And you can see on the left-hand side, if it's non-critical, we need an inner package per battery in order to prevent the evolution of heat. However, if this battery is at the end of the life cycle and it may be critical, you need an armored box to transport this battery from the dealership back to the recycling plant or back to a warehouse. The difference in transportation costs are tremendous, and the difference in organizing these transports are extremely challenging to all of us. So what you can see over here are now a couple of pictures of what we do in order to prevent that lithium batteries are actually being damaged. Because the truth is, damage can happen during transport, and the chemical reaction inside the lithium cell or inside the lithium battery can take up to 48 hours until actually the energy will create a fire. So in order to avoid transport risk, in order to reduce shock, we are using interlayers to protect the batteries during transportation. So when they shake on the road or within the container, there's less hazard of actually a damage. What you can also see, we have specific warehouses right now only in Europe, but we are ramping up warehouses in other parts around the world as well, which are specially designed to store and to handle and to provide value-added service for lithium batteries. So besides the typical sprinkler systems, what you can see on the right-hand side, these are so-called spill barriers. Because what's happening is if the sprinkler system goes on, it may be at night time when nobody's actually in the warehouse, you cannot extinguish a fire. It will continue to burn and to burn. But what you can do is you can prevent that the water which is being used to cool down the batteries and to prevent the fire being spread to other products within the warehouse. We have the spill barriers so that you can keep the other damages as limited as possible. Also, what you can see over here, the emergency concept. This looks very trivial, but the truth is, if you have a battery which needs to go into quarantine, and this happens more often than you think. It happens more often than we think today, where we are still shipping small numbers of lithium batteries. The numbers will go through the roof over the next couple of years. So over here, we need to provide a so-called quarantine area, which is far away from the building, which is also being supervised by video cameras, because if you put something into quarantine, you need to make sure that somebody is keeping a supervision over that, so that in case there is a fire, that you can prevent and take proactive measures. Temperature monitoring. Okay, all of us notice that our mobile phones sometimes get very, very hot. And when they got hot, as we learned previously, there's a possibility of this mobile battery then catching fire. So keeping temperature records at all times is very, very important. So we cannot control the temperature, but we can monitor the temperature. So besides having these temperature taggers in our warehouse, we are also providing live tracking data for the transportation of lithium batteries, for example, from China all the way to Europe, to identify, have the 15 degrees, this is typically what our customers would like us to transport the batteries, have they been adhered to at any given point of time? And should we identify, for example, that during rail voyage from here, 10,000 kilometers over to Europe, the temperature has been dropped below 0 or below 5 degrees, then our customers are being informed immediately, and by the time the product is arriving at our warehouses, we can already take the preactive measures and put those particular batteries into quarantine to start an exception process. Eventually, this takes me to the last slide of the presentation. There are fire containment solutions available in the marketplace. Together with our partner, MSafe Bridgeport, a UK-based company, we are using fire containment bags during transportation, air transportation, and sea freight transportation. And what that means is, should you actually have a lithium battery, which is on fire, the fire containment bags are containing the fire for 6 hours inside the bag, which allows the captain of the aircraft actually to go down to find the nearest airport in order to evacuate that particular lithium cell which did get fire. Dear audience, I hope this made you aware of the complexities around lithium cells. Please feel free to contact myself or my colleagues. We are out there at the booth. We have lithium-trained experts. They are available to assist you with any possible question you may have. And herewith, I'm closing the presentation, and I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Achim, which highlights really exactly why we're having this session, the complexity of the electric vehicle transportation, and we were really just focusing on one part of it there. So interesting, although a little bit scary. Next up, I'd like to welcome to the podium Fan Yongjun, the Deputy General Manager from Chengdu Raja Electric Vehicle Technology Company. Thank you, Mr. Fan. Thank you.
翻页真。
The green one needs to go.
好，那么非常荣幸啊，今天能在
It is my great pleasure to attend such a big audience, and to share with us about the latest information about the new energy vehicles. Just now, the previous gentleman has mentioned a lot about the transportation of batteries, and I myself is also an expert at battery production, so I will also use my time to share with you my expertise. First, in case of any fire, don't use water. So sprinkling will be very dangerous. So for lithium battery, the most active part is the lithium, just like sodium. So if you have any basic knowledge about chemistry, so whenever it meets water, then this will trigger huge fire. So the electrolyted liquid will be just like the so-called alcohol or C2H2OH. So for the fire extinguishing for the battery, you have to use some sand to quench the fire. You can't use any water-related substance to put out the fire. Secondly, I've been approached by many people, especially by Volkswagen, as to how to ensure safe transportation, especially for the transportation of the hazardous substances. In China, we don't have such a practice to put the batteries in the category of the so-called hazardous materials. No matter in single units or multi-units, I think my suggestion for you is that for the battery units, you cannot put them together in huge piles or stacks. For internal short circuits, this will trigger huge fire. So no compulsion, no pressing will be very important. Secondly, if it is not properly handled or packaged, then it will also spark short-circuiting, hence the fire. For any batteries, if we have two polars, right? So if we have a really good insulational measures put into place, I think it will also solve some of the issues that you are supposed to meet with. So this is my comment on using about 30 seconds to comment on the battery issues as part of my explanation or additional comment to the previous speech. Well, back to my speech, which is a new energy logistics cars. So there are many logistic cars in the world. Many types of logistic cars are in the world. So we have to identify as to what is the main reasons for the existence of those new energy logistics cars, the types, the categories, and also the different requirements for its operation. I think the entire world has been quite crazy about new energy cars. Ever since year 2003, there is a real boost for the development of the new energy cars in China. In China, no matter in which perspective, like the production volume and the transaction volume and the consumption volume, we are really among the best, or among the top few players. But you have to understand and have to analyze why there has been a huge craze for energy cars. In China, around 6.7 out of every 10 cars, I mean the passenger buses in China, have been replaced by new energy modules. So this is a really huge figure. That's about 67% of all the passenger cars for the buses. But for the passenger sedan cars, it's less than 2%. So that is to say, within such a range, it is still growing rapidly. It is a growing industry. You will find that there are countless capital and countless enterprises or businesses swarming into this industry. You'll be bombarded by various types of information, but you do not know what is the future road ahead. So we have to see amid the misty frost to see what is the future road ahead. In China, in the world, only China is really the very place for the development of new energy vehicles, especially for the logistics cars. Why? Because we have everything that you will need as part of the building blocks for this industry. Why there's a huge demand for logistics cars? The reason is as follows. The new energy logistics cars is a natural result of the huge demand for urban or intracity distribution or deliveries. In the past, we used to be an agricultural-based country. But if you still take a look at the countryside in China, well, it is no longer exactly the case compared with what it used to be over 10 or 20 years ago. So more and more people have been moving towards the cities, so it triggers huge demand for city, intracity or intercity deliveries or distributions. There is huge and serious air pollution. So these environmental-related issues, noise-related issues, or energy safety issues have combined to form a certain force behind the upgrading of the current transportational system. And also what we need is a really new round of urbanization move to embrace the new era characterized by the new energy logistic vehicles. You will find that around 78.7% of all the cars in the cities actually have find their pollution mainly from the so-called trucks or the lorries. I mean, the serious air pollution in China, to a certain extent, is largely attributable to the low standards for the oils or the fuels fueling the trucks or the lorries. That's why there is a huge demand for the upgrading of the new energy cars to accommodate the future logistics demand for city use or for urban environment. And here I have listed a few keywords, and these are the keywords that we care a lot. For example, energy conservation, reduction of emission, smart technology, and economic growth. And here you can see the basic process for urban delivery, and also the candidate categories or the types of new energy vehicles for logistics purposes. You can see here we have the so-called trunk line transportation, intracity transportation, and the last mile transportation. So if you put these three links together, you will find that there are different categories of car to be used or to be selected, especially for us to depart or to send commodities from the so-called DC or distribution centers to other outreach centers by those commercial stores or the shopping malls. So I think that the last mile or the last 100-meter transportation will be more dedicated to a lot of new energy-related transportational modes. Why? Because on one hand, economically, it is quite cost-effective. Secondly, it is what is really required by all the end customers. So, according to some of the local municipal regulations and laws, so there's a strict regulations over all the transportational cars within a certain city area without generating huge amount of pollution. So this is a huge impetus behind the embracing of all the new energy cars. So you can see that environmental protection is the first priority. Secondly, economic scale and efficiency will be the second parameter. So just think about it. We have the different type of price ranges for the so-called valley and also for the top for the use of electricities. So we have the peak hours and also for the lower bottom valley hours. So there is some evening out of all those power supply using different tariffs to regulate the supply of power. So what does that mean? That means if we use 1 kmh to generate about 80 kilometers of distance, for logistics cars, what is the cost? We really encourage everybody to make really better use of each and every penny. Especially during the night hours, the cost is only about 0.3 RMB yuan. But if you use the new energy cars, it is much, much lower than that of the traditional vehicles, fuels, and other types of energies. So that has also been a great trigger of the new type of transportation. For a car to be really suitable for the new energy era, what are the basic requirements? These are some of the key words. First of all, driving range. In other words, you have to be accommodative enough of a long distance. Secondly, recharging capacity. How frequent you have to recharge your car? Yes, rapid charging is important. Why everybody has been complaining a lot about the charging issues?
You can spare 2 to 3 hours to charge the battery full. Well, this kind of batteries cannot be eligible for electrified vehicles. So we need high energy density, we need fast charging, but also we need long life cycle. For a combustion car, its life cycle is about 3 to 5 years. For electric cars, but it's not like a combustion car or petrol car. So we'd expect that electrified vehicles can last longer. What if we can record the investment in 4 years' time, and if we can use electrified vehicles for 5, 6, or 7 years? Well, that will, of course, increase the profitabilities on part of the logistic companies. Stability is also very important. Right now, the percentage point is only 2%. There are a lot of companies moving into this business. So the product reliability and stability is something that is questionable. The economic benefit, well, let's say, if we can't bring benefit to the customers, if we can't help the customers to drive down the cost, the logistic business is not sustainable. So these are the basic 3 core values. First of all, for any transportation vehicles, it is just a vehicle for transportation. It must be convenient, it must be economic, it must be reliable, it must be long-lasting. So how to make sure that it's convenient to use? The battery is very heavy, so we need to introduce lightweight technologies to the battery. For any logistic vehicles, well, it's very difficult to reduce the weight of the batteries. Well, if you install more batteries to your vehicles, I would say the whole vehicle will easily exceed 4.5 tons. We need high energy density, we need lightweight technology. So lightweight technology is a future trend. Electrification, of course, that's for sure. Right now, we have a GPS to monitor the whole life cycle of these logistic vehicles. We need to use internet technologies to manage these logistic vehicles. I think the autonomous driving technologies can be best applied to logistic transportation. For logistic industries, the labor cost, especially the driver's cost, probably it accounts for a very large percentage of the total cost. So if we can reduce one driver, it can help you to reduce at least 1/3 of the total cost involved in that transportation, logistic transportation. So autonomous driving technologies is a way out. Sharing is a tool. You don't have to be in possession of that tool. You just share it. Well, say take DD for example. It's just a tool. You don't have to own a car. We encourage the sharing of the logistic vehicles. So in this process, there might be some sort of ecological environment established. The logistic industry itself is an ecosystem where we need research and development institute, key component manufacturers, OEM, end users, cargo owners, carriers. No matter whether it's batteries or spare parts or whole vehicles, the transshipment cost is very high right now. For 17.5 meter long trucks, it can only carry 3 vehicles. So the total cost is about 5,000 RMB for each vehicle so transported. So in the future, the tailor-made services and modularized services is a way out. Well, because of the time limitation, I don't have enough time to make elaborated descriptions of the items in the following couple of PPTs. Maybe in 2030 or 2040, the combustion cars will be faded out of the market, and new energy vehicles will be the dominant force in the Chinese market. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fan Yongjun. Again, giving us information on the development of EVs, again, expressing the dangers of the batteries, and perhaps with their light trucks, with larger electric vehicles, light trucks, where we started talking about logistics for electric vehicles, but we should also be looking at electric vehicles for logistics as well. Next up, we'd like to invite Mr. Jia Yong, the Vice General Manager of DST Rental.
Thank you. 各位来宾大家。
My name is Jia Yong from DST. I'm really happy to attend this conference. The topic of my presentation is the construction of a smart transportation and green logistic eco-environment. The logistic industry is growing very rapidly, especially in the urban areas. So the market size is about 1 trillion RMB. Market forecast shows that in intercity logistics, the market size is about 200 billion RMB. And by 2020, the O2O logistic market will exceed 1 trillion RMB. If you just take a look at the substitute replacement market, the logistic vehicles demand will exceed 2.5 million. So the electrified logistic vehicles can replace traditional trucks and vans. Combustion cars still have some challenges. For example, the right to drive on the road. So in the past 3 years, the combustion trucks are not allowed to go into the downtown areas in Chengdu. Talking about safety, the traditional combustion cars does not allow for a real-time visibility. And then the third pain point is the cost. The profitability of traditional logistic companies is on the downward trend, and the oil and gas cost is on the rise. So electrification might be a possible solution. So there are a couple of advantages of these new energy logistic vehicles. For example, it's zero emission, the cost is low. The air quality is a big issue. In China, the traditional combustion car contribute a lot to the air pollution. So the electrification is a strong support to green mobility and green transportation. And the electrification also enjoys the mobility advantages. For example, the traditional combustion cars or trucks are not allowed in the downtown areas in Chengdu. But for a electrified logistic vehicles, it can go anywhere, even into the very center of the city. And electrified logistic vehicles can help us to better distribute the transportation capacities across different regions. And new energy logistic vehicles entails lower cost. According to our calculation, it helps to drive the cost down by 40%. And sometimes they can drive the cost down by 30% when it comes to the replacement of combustion trucks. And electrification or electrified or new energy logistic vehicles allowed for a real-time transmission of data. So that allows the logistic companies to have a better management and visibilities of these vehicles running in the streets. A few words about DST. DST is a service suppliers for electrified or new energy logistic vehicles. We provide solutions for the use of new energy vehicles. We provide solutions for charging, for distribution of transportation capacity. We provide solutions to support operation. We help the logistic companies to reduce the operational cost so that our customers will really enjoy the benefit of using the new energy logistic vehicles. In 2017, we managed more than 10,000 vehicles, and for 2018, our target is 30,000. Right now, we have more than 2,000 charging posts, and we're going to exceed 5,000 in 2018. This is our corporate culture. Our vision is to become a transmitter of new value. We'd love to deliver new value, new services to our customers. Our mission is to provide green and sustainable products and services to our users and customers. We provide our customers with new energy logistic vehicles. We also provide after-sale services. We provide charging solutions. This is our HR vision. We treat our employees as our business associate and partners. Our operational philosophy is to combine professional products with professional service. These are some of the awards we receive. These are the products we provide to our customers. We partner with the OEMs, of course, with strong and quality OEMs. We pay critical attention to motor, battery, and steering system. We also need to establish an extensive city coverage. We need to take a look at the content of the service and after-sales systems by the OEMs. But of course, we also need to take a look at the range of the electric vehicles, the energy consumptions. We need to do some physical and real tests of these vehicles. Talking about vehicle safety test, we have on-site inspections, delivery inspections, operational inspections, and the inspections of the powertrain performance. These are mini van. They can carry up to 800 kilos of cargo, and the range is about 150 kilometers. The charging time is about 1 to 2 hours. This is a live passenger's car. This is a light truck. Well, the range is more than 200 kilometers. The changing time is within 2 hours. It carries up to 1,400 kilos of cargo. Apart from products, we also provide one-stop solutions. All our vehicles can legally run in the streets. We have rescue teams. We promise to reach the accident site within 1 hour if the accident site is 15 kilometers away, and 2 hours on site if the accident site is 30 kilometers away. Right now, we have more than 200 outlets for the repair and rescue of these logistic vehicles across China. We provide a courtesy car. We deliver the vehicles to our customers, to the doors of our customers. This is about our charging service. We have slow charging posts. We have fast charging posts. We also have emergency charging vehicles. We provide mobile charging solutions. So far, we have established more than 2,000 charging posts or charging venues across China. Most of our charging networks are established in the logistic centers and residential quarters. Talking about the Internet of Cars, we're moving into this industry. We provide the whole car data, the route of the vehicles, the operational data, the analysis of the batteries, real-time sensing, and traffic violation inquiry, or the information that we can provide to the customers. So if you drive a vehicle on the road, sometimes you violate the traffic rules involuntarily or without knowing it. We can notify the drivers almost in real time about any possible traffic violation. Within our service station, we provide maintenance, repair, emergency rescue, and charging services. Once there is a breakdown cars, The drivers can dial our 400 service hotlines. We'll send a rescue team within 1 or 2 hours, depending on the distance between the service station and the rescue site. And we'll also need to establish the integrated charging station to further drive down the cost of charging. These are some of the case studies of collaboration. We collaborate with Shunfeng. They outsource the vehicles, charging posts, and drivers to us. We also work with Jingdong. They outsource the vehicles and charging posts to us. We also collaborate with Pros Park on the establishment of this charging station. Mobike is also our partner. We provide operation solutions to Mobike.
So we cover extensive service across the whole chain. So the second case is the Haijixing Green Distribution Project, which is a time-sharing project. Haijixing has a business requirement, and then we will do everything to cope with their business and also try to finish all the services within a certain time frame and also do the billing. Another part of it is the so-called the rental service for some collaboration. So for the first few months, probably you have to only pay a sum of money as part of your rental fee, and also probably for the next stage of service, it is free of charge. So last slide is that, green sustainable products and services is our mission that we can give an honor to the new energy industries. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jia Yong. Again, another interesting presentation, and this time expanded the conversation on EVs, including to the car charging stage and so on. So I think we've heard interesting, complex, and as I said before, almost scary outlook on logistics for electric vehicles. So I think last time I asked maybe too many questions, and I never had time for questions from the audience. So I will give an opportunity, if anybody in the room wants to ask a question or to make a comment, agreeing or even better, disagreeing with the panel, you're welcome to do so. Please just raise your hand and wait for the microphone to come to you so we can do the translation as well. A question from the tall man in the middle.
Hello, my name is Ruud Vossenbelt from Inform. I have a question to the panel regarding electric vehicles, thinking from the car maker's point of view. I hear the stories about the risk of the batteries. The question is, what is better for the car maker, to charge the battery already early before production, or charge it in the factory itself, or charge it maybe in the logistic chain after the factory?
It's okay, just, yeah.
这位朋友的这个问题。
So I think this is also a question that we are all very much interested in. First of all, from the battery's perspective, the rapid charging is something that we all care most. I think, there are something that we have to mind. First of all, energy density. The higher the density of the energies, the safety issues that will be at risk. So this is something for sure. Secondly, for the charging currents, if it goes too high, then the high frequency for the circulation of the current, just like a sportsman or an athlete, if it is doing something over-exercising, then it is hard for him or her to bear. So probably we are looking for a new balance where on one hand we can reduce the cost, on the other hand we can really enhance the energy density. On the third part, we have to ensure it is really cheap to sell and to buy and also really very safe and secure. So I think it is really hard balance to strike. We are always looking for the answers to look for some possible solutions to the issues. Originally, we thought a lot about the nano technologies, for some nano-based technologies to develop some batteries. Later, we have a new concept called a graphite. So after graphite came out and which fails to solve the issues, then probably we are going to look for new solutions in addition to the graphites and the nanos that come to the foreground for a certain period of time and are disappeared all of a sudden. So I think it really requires a huge amount of work, which is consistent, that it can help us to do more flexible and a scientific way of arrangement of all the relevant components of the cost. The time that I enter into this industry, the cost is really very high, but now it's really down much lower, much further than the so-called 6.4 RMB per unit to about 1.1 RMB per unit. Originally, we have a lot to talk about 3C or 5C. In other words, it means from 0 to fully charged. 20 minutes, you can finish the job, it's called 3C. So if it can be done within 10 minutes, it's called 5C, or 1/10 of the 1 hour. So this is something that has already become the order of the day. I'm sure that if so long as we have more care and support from the industry, so long as we have adequate capital and human resources, and so long as we have a clear understanding of the future, then we can really have a bright future. Any other comments?
I also would like
Yeah,
to,
please.
I would like to comment on that as well. As I tried to explain during the presentation, depending on different country legislation, it depends whether you can actually deliver a fully charged vehicle battery on a longer distance by road. Are you trucking it by rail? Are you going cross-border? Are you going into a different country? So country legislation A may say it's allowed, but actually you are crossing international territory. It may not be allowed in a different territory. So therefore, this makes the entire situation very, very complex. And therefore, there's no such thing as one straight answer. The answer is, it depends.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, I don't know anything about logistics myself, but just something that springs to mind is in the first session, Mr. Tsai-Jin talked about the Internet of Cars. And I think if it's a finished car, you want the battery almost to be charged right from the beginning because it will power the connectivity of the car, perhaps through the whole supply chain. But as I said, I'm not an expert, but just a thought on that. I think there's a question on this side.
大家好，我是张雅青，来自于爱科农业机械有限公司。刚刚我就是听陈博士也提到了，就是说我们这个公路的政策对于整机场可能我们的物流成本
Transportation will increase the cost by about 20%. Just now, the panelists have all mentioned that no matter who you are, the new energy vehicle makers and various interested parties are trying their best to reduce the logistic cost for the later stages of the whole chain. For our agriculture-related machine manufacturing industry, we are also making some explorations into this regard by developing some new energy tractors. So, because we are an OEM, so standing from our perspective as an OEM of a tractor, my question for you is that we are trying to reduce the cost. So, as an OEM, how and what can we do to work with the logistic companies to work together to reduce cost further for the logistics industry? Thank you. So I will answer this question. First of all, I want to make a disclaimer 20% is not the right figure. It is an ideal figure, which is not a real figure. You have to throw in many factors, including multi-modal transportation and many others. So if you calculate the direct cost increase, well, I think the figure is somewhere around over 50% instead of 20%. So the leeway is around 30 percentage points. For OEM, I think my main suggestion for you is that, first of all, multimodal transportation, this is for sure. This can help you to reduce the cost and also to enhance efficiency because road is up, so the water and rail can also be quite advantageous. Secondly, for water transportation is highly in a much scale, so it can really form a so-called scale of economy, the effect of a scale economy. So I think you can really consider this possibility in the days to come. In the future, water transportation will become the first and also the key priority for you to think about. Secondly, I also talked about this issue just now. In the future, the consignees will also become the main interested parties to work together with the OEMs. They will be mainly responsible for the managing of the future plans for the transportation facilities and also the transportation resources. I have a previous background working for Volkswagen, and back in my Volkswagen days, they have subcontracted many of the businesses to some of the sub-parties to form a so-called network efficiency. While optimizing some of the cost components, this can help you to simplify many of the procedures. If you work with the consignors, I think it can really help you to ensure a highly integrated effect to put many things together. So in the future, warehousing plus multi-modal transportation plus destination transportation will be 3-in-1 strategy for you. Okay, I can also add a few comments because our cost is too high, so we have been talking about this issue always. We have some previous contacts with Changjiu, and one of the questions that we are always asked is, what can we do about the high cost? So many people have been talking about the so-called return transportation cost or the return transportation issue. Who can really reduce the cost for the back trip? I think that guy will become the pop star in our conference room because we can really ensure we can cover all the cost from A to B, but from B back to A, who can really cover this part? Who can really reduce the cost for the return trip? So those who can really be quite skillful in reducing the cost for B to A, please do let us know. Secondly, of course, we want to do multi-modal, like water, rail, or water, and many others. But we have tried several times, but eventually we found that the cost is not down by a huge percentage point. So it is really something that we are always thinking about, how to do it better in the future. So this is a question for OEM. I think for OEMs, they can really think about what are the possible ways to reduce the cost even further. So probably your profit is quite negligible, but the cost for logistics can be really something you cannot ignore. This is my comment. So, Mr. Fan, good suggestion. We are also an expert company in this regard, so I want to explain two things to you at this moment. First of all, we do not say that the current logistic cost increase is because of the current situation. It is largely because of the past legacy issues where not all the costs are up to the standards, hence the issue now. The so-called added value of our society is something that we have to bear in mind. Secondly, you have talked about the so-called return trip cost increase. I think two parties should work together. First of all, complete or finished vehicles, like Changjiu logistic company, as a key link or node between the OEM and also the drivers. This is very important. On the other hand, I think Internet of Cars or Internet of Things, very important. However, for us, our industry, we have two different things. First of all, for OEMs, huge batches of commodities or vehicles for transportation will be very different compared with the so-called small volume transportation. So there's no way for you to resort to APP to fulfill your target. Secondly, for return vehicles, full use or full load, I think we can also help to co-establish some platforms, okay, in the future. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Again, a very interesting session. So we've learned a lot about the challenges of electric vehicle logistics. Sorry, again, we're having to cut the session short because I know there were some more questions, but we haven't got time. We haven't got time for any more questions. So not least because it's the lunch break, and I think you only have to take one look at me to know that I like my lunch. So I hope you enjoyed the morning sessions. Please join us for the lunch, and we'll welcome you back in the main room here at 2 o'clock for 2 special keynote presentations, one from the EU-China Chamber of Commerce with a special emphasis on the trucking industry, and then a special presentation on non-automotive logistics from Hongxing Erke Group. Thank you very much, and thank you to the panel. Thank you.